Hi everybody, I'm Natalie at the Myrtle Beach Art Museum, and I'm coming to you from the pottery studio. We're going to talk about how to glaze your pieces that you purchased at Grab and Go. I'm going to start with this little piece. It has a lid and a foot on it. That's this little raised area right here. And I'm going to show you a couple of important things to remember when you're glazing. Be sure and read these directions and follow them carefully. The first step is to cover the area you're going to work on with newspaper. Carefully supervise any children while they're handling the glaze. Everybody wash their hands well after you are done glazing. And I've got my glaze directions, my pot, my brush, and my glaze colors. When you're getting ready to glaze your piece, you're going to take a sponge. You're going to get it wet, wring it out almost all the way, and then you're going to do a quick wipe of the piece that you're getting ready to glaze. The reason that we're doing that is because dust often gets on the surface of our pots and it can keep the glaze from adhering. I did it every place the glaze is going to touch, so the inside and the outside. And then we'll just wait for that to dry. Please only use the glaze that you get from the pottery studio. It'll come in containers like this. If you use a different glaze and it's not the correct formulation for the temperature that we fire to, it can run off of your piece entirely. Please leave a band 1/4 inch from the bottom free from glaze, as well as leaving the bottom free from glaze. This will prevent your item from fusing to the kiln shelf. If you have an item with a lid like this one here, you'll want to keep that lid area totally free from glaze. This is called the gallery, so don't glaze the gallery and don't glaze the bottom of the lid that touches the gallery. I'm going to paint freehand on this pot. I'm going to do a little bit with my big brush that I got in my kit. I'll show you how to use the glazes in a couple of different ways. I'm going to start here with this color. And the first thing I need to do is stir it up really, really well, so I don't have any lumps or bumps. Then I'm going to scrape off my stirring stick and rinse it off in the water, because when I stir a new color, I want to be sure that it's nice and clean. I'm going to take my first bit of glaze here and I'm going to use my biggest paintbrush. You will have gotten a couple of different sizes of paintbrush depending on what you want to do. And I'm going to paint the top. And I am going to paint the top in a solid color here. I want it to be nice and even. Okay. But I'm going to leave these areas over here open because I think I want to use a different color for that. Now I'm going to use this color here. I'll stir it with my stick, just like the last one. If you leave your glazes for any period of time, stir them again when you come back. So now I've got this second color and I'm going to use a smaller brush. So during this time, I might actually get some of the glaze that I have onto the bottom of my lid. And if I do that, I won't worry about it. I'll just clean that up with our sponge a little bit later. I'm gonna have coat 2 of this other color now that it's nice and dry. So I'm not making this line right here between those two colors very precise, but you certainly can. You can even use tape to mark it off. This does not really act like the paint that you're used to. The glaze does not glide over the surface like paint does. It doesn't mix like paint does, and it soaks in much, much faster. You can see I've got a couple of drips on here, and we're going to leave those alone for now, but I will fix them before I put on the next coat and after they dry. If you use a sponge on the glaze, please don't use it for washing dishes after. Just throw it away. All right, so I've let this dry all the way. It's important to do that because if you don't let it dry all the way, what happens is that your next coat will pick up the first coat of glaze and make a bare spot. Now, I'm gonna go back in before I put on my second coat, and where it dripped, I'm just gonna take the body of my paintbrush, I guess I'll call it a handle, the handle of my paintbrush, and I'm just gonna very gently go over those areas where I had the drips, and that will ensure that those areas are nice and even with the surface. Okay. I'm also going to clean up the gallery here. Remember this little interior lip that my lid fits on. So I've got a coat of glaze on that. So I'm also going to use my big brush. What color did I use there? I think I'm going to use the big brush with this bluer color, and I'm going to get the inside of this pot too. Really important to get the inside. Make sure and put glaze on every area of your piece that will touch food, and that will be sure to make it food safe. I'm going to close these when I'm not using them so that they don't accidentally get a drop of the other glaze in them, and so that I don't accidentally spill them. When you have your dried glaze, touch it as little and as gently as possible. If possible, always hold it by the foot. Remember to stir your glaze. If it's all going to be one color, you could just paint it on. And then you can see I've got little drips here. So I'll take my sponge and wipe those off almost immediately. Now I'm going to take another color, rinse my stirring stick off, and wipe it with my towel. I'm going to put it in there. This is a nice red. I'm going to use this long skinny paintbrush, and I'm just going to make drops on it. Now because these drops are thicker than a coat of glaze, I won't need to put more glaze on them. So I'll just use this one sprinkling of droplets. Now I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this star. So what if you don't want your piece to be all one color? Well, you can add some color after you've got your 3 coats on, or you can take a smaller paintbrush, stir your glaze well, and then you can paint fine lines and designs. See how my glaze soaks right into the ceramic. So you have to be super patient. So now I've got one line. I'll have to remember to go back and give that line 3 coats. I'm going to rinse out my paintbrush, put it in my other color, and I'm going to put another color right next to it. So this is detailed work. And you can get some pretty cool effects with this. Again, 3 coats, and I'll continue doing that until my entire star is filled with the colors I want it to be. When it's time to clean up, put your glaze containers and your stirring stick back into your bag so you can bring it back to the museum. We'll use it again. Also, clean your paintbrushes, please. Wipe them off and include them to return to the museum. We will sterilize them and use them for the next grab and go. I took everything off of here and put it to the side. I'm going to take a small bit of newspaper and I'll place all of my glazed items on that while they dry completely. I will take this newspaper and I will fold it in on itself so that all of the glaze dust stays inside here. Be sure to bring your glazed pots back to the studio to fire on either Wednesday, July 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. or Saturday, August 1st from 2 to 4 p.m. Please bring us our paintbrushes and glaze containers so that we can sterilize and reuse them. I can't wait to see what you've created.